A transistor with a 5 nanometer gate length and a 3 nanometer silicon body is operating in a regime where every classical assumption that underlies drift diffusion simulation is quantitatively wrong. The threshold voltage is off, the leakage current is off, the drive current is off, the contact resistance is off. Not by small margins, by factors that matter to a product team. And the root cause of all four errors is the same. Electrons at that scale are not particles with definite positions. They're waves. The de Broglie wavelength, the wavelength associated with an electron's quantum mechanical wave nature, is approximately 10 to 20 nanometers in silicon at room temperature. That wavelength is not an exotic material property. It is determined by the Planck's constant and the electron's effective mass, and it doesn't negotiate with the process engineer. The left panel shows the electron wavelength in silicon as a function of kinetic energy. As thermal energy is around 26 millielectron volt, the wavelength is roughly 15 to 20 nanometers. As the kinetic energy increases towards a few hundred millielectron volts, the wavelength compresses down to 5 to 8 nanometers. These are relevant scales for inversion layer electrons in biased MOSFETs. The right panel overlays the wavelength threshold against the industry scaling roadmap. The crimson dashed line at 15 nanometers is where wave effects become non-negligible. The roadmap curve crossed that line around 2015 or 2018 with FinFET production nodes. Every device built since then has operated in that wave regime. Now, the three quantum effects that follow confinement, tunneling, and ballistic transport are not independent physics. They are three different observable consequences of the electron's wavelength. Understanding them as a family is more useful than treating each one as an isolated correction to a classical model. Now think about what classical physics says happens when you invert a MOSFET channel. You apply gate voltage, bend the bands, and a thin sheet of electrons accumulates at the silicon oxide interface. In the classical picture, those electrons can occupy any energy above the conduction band edge. There is a continuum of available states. The charge sits right at the interface. Quantum mechanics disagrees. When electrons are confined in the direction perpendicular to the interface and in a strongly inverted thin body device, that confinement is 2 to 5 nanometers. They can no longer freely occupy any energy level. The allowed energies form a discrete ladder of quantum subbands, and the lowest rung of that ladder sits above the classical conduction band edge. The classical band edge is not an allowed energy state. It's the bottom of the potential well, but the wave mechanics of the confined electron won't let it sit at the bottom. The panel shows the ground subband energy as a function of the confinement width for the dominant effective mass in silicon. At 15 nanometer body thickness, roughly a thick planar MOSFET, the ground subband sits above 50 millielectron volts above the band edge. At 5 nanometers, a typical FinFET fin width is around 150 millielectron volts above. At 3 nanometers, a gate all around nanosheet, it's approaching 200 millielectron volts. The three vertical lines mark the body thickness for current device architectures. The crimson line at 3 nanometers is where gate all around nanosheets operate. The navy line is where FinFETs operate. Both are well within the regime where confinement shifts the subband energy by 100 to 200 millielectron volts. What this means for threshold voltage? A gate must supply enough voltage to not just reach inversion, it must supply enough to push the inversion charge below the first subband energy. That extra voltage requirement is the threshold voltage shift. It's 150 to 200 millivolts for current technology nodes. It's not a small correction, and it cannot be reproduced by adjusting any parameter in a classical MOSFET model. Now, classical mechanics has a clean rule for barriers. If your kinetic energy is less than the barrier height, you don't cross. End of story. The electron stops, turns around, and goes back the way it came. This is why macroscopic objects don't tunnel through walls. The barriers are enormous relative to thermal energies, and the classical rule is corrected at scale. At the scale of a 1 nanometer gate oxide, that rule fails. The gate oxide is a 3.1 electron volt potential barrier. Electrons in the silicon channel have thermal kinetic energies of about 26 millielectron volts, roughly 0.8% of the barrier height. Classically, none of them cross. Quantum mechanically, the electron wave function penetrates the barrier, decaying exponentially with depth, and a small but non-zero fraction emerges on the other side of the gate electrode. That fraction is the tunneling transmission probability. The left panel shows the tunneling transmission probability as a function of oxide thickness for SiO2 in navy and HFO2 in green. The exponential decay is unmistakable. Each nanometer of SiO2 thickness reduces the transmission probability by about 8 orders of magnitude. At 1.2 nanometers, SiO2 leaks roughly 1 to 10 amperes per square centimeter. That's the gate leakage that forced the industry of SiO2. Now, the crimson vertical line at 1.2 nanometers is where pure SiO2 gates become unusable for logic. The green vertical line at 3.5 nanometers is the physical thickness of a hafnium oxide layer with the same capacitance as a 1.2 nanometer SiO2. Now, because HFO2 has a larger dielectric constant, you can use a physically thicker layer means exponentially less tunneling current. The HFO2 at 3.5 nanometer physical thickness leaks several orders of magnitude less than 1.2 nanometer SiO2. Now, the same exponential sensitivity that makes thin oxides leaky is exactly what makes flash memory work. A flash tunnel oxide is deliberately designed to be thin enough to allow fallen ion tunneling at programming voltages of 15 to 20 volts. But the same exponential decay that makes the current large under high field makes it essentially zero under the low field of retention. The oxide is simultaneously the programming medium and the storage barrier, tuned to opposite ends of the same exponential. Now, the drift diffusion current equation, the foundation of every classical SPICE model, is a statistical description. It says that on average, electrons in a channel scatter repeatedly of phonons, interface roughness, and impurities. Each scattering event randomizes the electron's direction, but the net effect of the applied field is a slow drift in the field direction. The drift velocity is the field times the mobility. Mobility is the measured average outcome of all those scattering events. Now, the mean free path, the average distance an electron travels between scattering in silicon at room temperature is approximately 10 to 20 nanometers. For a 200 nanometer channel, an electron scatters 10 to 20 times. Now, the left panel shows ballistic fraction versus gate length. For a 5 nanometer channel, most electrons cross without scattering at all. The vertical dashed line at 12 nanometers marks the mean free path. To the left of the line, more than 50% of electrons transit the channel without a single collision. The statistical assumption is broken. At 3 to 5 nanometer gate lengths, essentially all electrons cross ballistically. The mobility concept, which requires averaging over many scattering events, doesn't apply. You can't define a mobility for a single electron transiting a 5 nanometer channel. It's like trying to define the average speed of a single step. Now, the right panel shows the practical consequence. If you extract an apparent mobility from the short channel device using the classical drain current formula, the number you get collapses towards zero as the gate length shrinks, below the mean free path. This isn't a real mobility drop, it's the classical formula being applied in a regime where it's no longer valid. Now, in the ballistic regime, current is set by quantum transmission from the source reservoir through the channel potential to the drain. The relevant quantity is the Landauer conductance, 2 times the electron charge squared over Planck's constant, or roughly 77 microsiemens per conducting channel, multiplied by the quantum transmission probability. That's the ballistic current limit. And it's the reason drive current in sub 10 nanometer devices deviates 30 to 50% from classical predictions. Now, the electron wave function, psi of x, is a complex valued function that encodes everything quantum mechanics can say about the electronic state. If you want to know the probability of finding the electron at a particular position, you compute the squared magnitude of the wave function at that position. The probability density tells you where the electron actually lives, and it's very different from where classical mechanics would put it. The left panel shows the two lowest energy wave functions in a potential well, along with their probability densities. The classical picture would put all the electrons at the lowest possible energy, the bottom of the well. The quantum picture puts the ground state electron in a sine wave that peaks at the center of the well and has zero probability at the walls. The first excited state oscillates twice. These are the confinement subbands. They arise because the wave function must be zero at the hard walls. The boundary condition and the only sinusoidal functions that satisfy that are the quantized standing waves you see in the picture. The middle panel shows tunneling. The incident wave function at the left side of the barrier is a propagating wave. Inside the barrier, where classical physics says the electron can't be, the wave function decays exponentially. It doesn't vanish, it gets smaller. On the far side of the barrier, a transmitted wave emerges. Amplitude reduced by the exponential decay through the barrier, that transmitted amplitude squared is the tunneling probability. And the right panel shows free propagation. The right panel shows the ballistic case. A wave function launched from the source propagates coherently through the short channel, reaching the drain without being scattered or attenuated. No randomization, no loss of phase coherence. The probability density is nearly uniform across the channel. 3 panels, 3 device physics problems, 1 mathematical object and 1 equation, the Schrodinger's equation, that produces all 3 solutions depending only on the boundary conditions and the potential energy profile. This is why Broglie teaches quantum mechanics from the Schrödinger equation rather than treating each effect as a separate empirical model. The derivations are unified. The physics is one consistent framework. Now, the table on the screen is the engineering output of this video. 6 rows, one for each place where a quantum effect directly controls a device parameter you have to deal with in your work. The first 2 rows are confinement. FinFET and gate all-around threshold voltages are 50 to 200 millivolt higher than classical predictions. Every SPICE model for these devices has to include a quantum correction term for confinement, or the simulated circuit fails timing at the design corner that corresponds to end-of-life threshold voltage shift. The second confinement row is the two-dimensional electron gas in 3,5 HEMTs used in RF power amplifiers. The entire channel charge mechanism in those devices is quantum confinement at a heterostructure interface. There's no classical analog. The 3 tunneling rows cover different parts of the circuit. Gate tunneling through the high-K stack sets the standby leakage power for logic. It's the dominant contribution to leakage power in the ideal state for any advanced logic chip. Flash tunnel oxide tunneling is all of the programming and erase current. Every electron that moves on or off a floating gate gets there by tunneling. Band-to-band tunneling in reverse bias junctions can raise the minimum achievable off-state current by an order of magnitude in thin-body devices, which matters for any circuit that requires deep power gating. And the final row is ballistic transport. If your simulator is using classical mobility for a 5 nanometer channel, it's over-predicting drive current by 30 to 50%. That's not a calibration issue you can fix by adjusting threshold voltage or channel doping. The transport mechanism is different, and the compact model requires the Landauer formalism, not drift diffusion. ArcD covers each of these effects quantitatively, starting from the Schrodinger equation and building to the device level engineering models. By the end, you'll have derived the confinement induced threshold voltage shift analytically, computed tunneling current from the WKB approximation, and applied the Landauer formula to a short channel, not as academic exercises, as tools you can apply directly to the devices in the table.